go. Anyone hurt? Let me check on you.
After returning to Jinzhou, we catch up with Shisha, then proceed to put all the clues we gathered in the last 2 episodes together, to solve the Sundial's lock and gain access to a map of the Grand Library that has a marked point on it. Our guess is that the magistrate wants to meet us there. I don't completely get how we got to this conclusion, but fine. So we set out towards City Hall, leaving our companions behind for a while. After 2 busy episodes going after clues left behind by the magistrate, we are finally about to meet her in person. Welcome to the Celeris 3 Journal. The Grand Library is a giant puzzle, and it's a soothing one at that. Should the puzzle be soothing? I'm not really sure, but as we're accustomed to in games such as this, a main quest puzzle can't really be hard, so they hard feed us what to do next, meaning to solve the puzzle we don't really need to lift a finger but follow the game's instructions.
It seems I have a puzzle to solve. I guess I'll check on the mechanism in the middle first.
The game even tells us this, and frames it as if this would be the magistrate's doing.
So this is the right way to go. I am being fed just enough information to work out the puzzle. This does look like Miss Magistrate's doing.
So it was a soothing puzzle. Not only the solution was easy to figure out and thus soothing, the music in the Grand Library has such tranquility to its tune, and the bell sounds affiliated with the puzzle evoke such an atmosphere that I could have stayed here longer than it took to put the 5 missing notes back in the Symphodal. The visual appeal of the Grand Library was also to my liking. So I enjoyed this part of the main quest, and even to this day remember how chill it was walking upon the semi-transparent blue fields between the boughs. During the whole thing, we are reminded of the Magistrate's hidden presence in our story so far, which is an important foreshadowing of what is to happen. Because as we enter the database,
Thank you for leading the way, Rover. What a magnificent place to set foot in. Extensive, exhaustive. Oh, how I want to carve the place inside out and blow it all to shreds. Thought you'd seem a bit more surprised. I wonder why.
it turns out it was a trap. A trap which, to be fair, in my playthrough I completely missed at first.
So you've laid a trap for me.
So I was quite confused about Scar's remark that we are too composed, as I was just freaking out. No way we let him here. This is terrible. The magistrate will be outraged at us.
Interesting. Do you really think you can trap me here?
But no, it was all according to her design. And so it's time for our next bout with the Fractsidus Overseer.
Stay with you a bit longer. Till we meet again, dear friends.
You're not going anywhere. One with the sounds.
This time with a phase 2. While we do the fighting, let's finish Scar's story. In the last episode we've listened to him telling the tale of the Black Lamb and the Shepherd, a cautionary tale. We've uncovered that he is somehow tied to that village, although it is not quite clear how involved he was in that story. At the start of this episode I've cut the part out where Chisha tells us the disaster at Chichi village happened a long time ago. What is important is that Scar came back, and with a clear purpose. He wanted to meet us. And so he did. Although I do not think his intention would have been to fight us in the end, but alas, friendship tends to start in quite diverse ways.
Can't you place some of that trust in me?
I hope we will meet Scar again. At the point I'm in the story right now, middle of the Rincita act, I have not met him again. He's just locked into his cell assigned to him by the magistrate after we beat him in this fight. Another thing we learned about the Fractsidus is that they, just like the people did in that village, fuse humans and Tessa discords to grant everyday people resonator powers. Scar's face too looks like as if the Tessa discord came out of him, and now we're fighting that version of Scar. After a fight where at one point, after I lost one of my damage dealers, I thought we were about to lose but managed to stay on top for the remainder of the combat, we finally deal the finishing blow and close the chapter on Scar.
So you knew I was following you all along, huh? My Elysium only breaks under coordinated attacks from both sides. So you've joined hands against me with Miss Magistrate here. It does hurt my feelings, you know?
Are you all right, Rover?
Of course he is. How could I ever have the heart to hurt him?
As we find out, Scar went easy on us, which means he is fine being captured. Doesn't matter. We're not siding with him anymore, even if at this point in playing, I still thought he might have some valuable information for our cause. Information about who we are, why don't we remember a thing before we showed up in the Gorges of Spirits, maybe even something about the Hungry Boys, although that is a bit of a far-fetch. However, the rover in the story already knew most of those things, or at least gained some clues, and that is because of a narrative tool the writers used here.
Now I have retrieved the magistrate's message for me from the puzzle box. But it only points me to the Grand Library. There's no meeting time. I've solved the puzzle. The discs have been rotated, and the two symbols are now glowing. With this glowing light, a shadow is cast on the two other symbols. The black tortoise of the north to the city hall. And the time reads, the Shichen of Cho, in the wee hours of the morning.
The reason we've already gained trust in the magistrate is because we have met before this whole charade. The tool I mentioned, reverse heist. In chronological order, first you plan the heist, then you execute it. But in movies, to make it more exciting, the meeting where you plan the heist is shown across the execution of the heist in small snippets. Here, however, we get to the meeting after the heist, this time capturing Scar, has already concluded. This is why I was a bit confused as to why we are so sure of ourselves in trusting the magistrate and her companions. So now, what did we learn from her? First, that the Fractsidus are planning to bring down a natural catastrophe on this world. A lament.
What is the lament? Disaster? Curse? Some kind of punishment? People only see the surface. The lament brings death, destruction, and countless reverberations.
Because Scar wasn't able to answer the question clearly, we'll just have to imagine a catastrophe so big that it could lead to a civilizational collapse.
Salvation. The only path to a new life form and a new civilization.
What else did we learn? The second thing is that the Fractsidus have somehow stolen Xue, the Sentinel of Jinzhou, who is bonded with Jinshi. The Sentinel is very important to the stability of this land, as it can see the future and thus help Jinshi govern it. But for now there are more pressing matters. A Threnodian is awakening thanks to the machinations of the Fractsidus. As we have defeated Scar, the first boss of the Huanglong Act, it was time for us to set sight on the next one, and it will be this Threnodian that can be located in the Northfall Barrens.
We must defeat them to protect all of humanity. You were able to defeat and absorb a Threnodian-related tacit discord with your bare hands. Meanwhile, Huanglong's records mention a hero with similar powers who saved our nation during the Threnodian War.
And the last piece of information, clues about our identity. It seems Xue has memories of us, of Rover, the mythic figure of a hero who saved the land ages ago and is somehow tied to us. Maybe even we are that hero. We do not know how we lost our memories, but Xue's information points towards the Northfall Barrens and the Threnodian, which means for the second half of the Huanglong Act, our personal goals, recovering our past, and the needs of Jinzhou, stopping the lament, are aligned again so the path is set.
Sorry, but I don't know. Jue's last piece of information pointed to the Northfall Barrens, where you should find the Threnodian. I pray you will find your answers there.
Interrogating Scar, we uncover some further information about Xue. It seems that the Fractsidus are not at complete blame for the disappearance of the Sentinel, rather there is some prophecy the Sentinel foretold that has led to the current events. But that is all to know for now.
Rover, care for a wager?
Scar tries to convince us one last time to switch sides, but as we don't want, he promises us that one day we will come to see things from their perspective.
You are one of us, the Black Lambs, and you have been chosen to join us, ushering in the new world.
He even brings back the black sheep narrative that made the core of his story, and then he is put in jail by a black screen. Before ending this quest, Jinshi tells us about a prophecy Xue foretold about us.
When raindrops fall upstream, please head to the Northfall Barrens and seek General Jian of the Midnight Rangers.
Because of this prophecy, our journey to the Northfall Barrens is postponed, so we have time to gather other clues regarding our identity. This is where we are introduced to another fraction of Solaris, the Black Shores. They are like weathermen to this land, as they have set up systems to predict laments. We remember our vision of Xue, and that we were wearing the symbol of the Black Shores in this vision, meaning we might have had some connection to them in the past.
This Blake bloom is their symbol.
We're also told that the Black Shores were asking the magistrate about us, which leads into the next part of the main quest.
I suggest keeping an eye out for the Black Shore members. They could prove to be your valuable allies. I'll do my best to find Jue and tell you everything I learned from it once I return.
There is an epilogue to this act yet. After we leave, Jinshi calls her friend, Shangli, who was the real mastermind behind the puzzles we've solved. In their call, we as players learn the prophecy Scar whispered into Jinshi's ears, but it will be left unknown to Rover for a while yet.
That Jue had predicted I will have to fight it one day.
A Threnodian awakening, a fight between the magistrate and the Sentinel. The story has much in store for us. So as we start the second half of the Huanglong chapter, let's listen to a story about Jinzhou's past.
The Honorable Madame Jinzi, our great magistrate of Jinzhou, was handpicked by Sentinel Jur. Her status as the Sentinel's appointed resonator is rare among all past magistrates. Our Jinzhou was leaderless for years until Jur finally chose her to be the next magistrate, and she answered the call. To further elaborate, we must start with the battle beneath the Crescent. The Northfall Barrens, scarred by countless wars, discarded weapons scattered like bones. Our soldiers had fought to reclaim the land for years, to no avail. Overthrax, the dreadful Threnodian monster, fed on the frequencies of weapons, turning our fallen soldiers into deadly tacit discords. General of the Midnight Rangers, Geshu Lin, bravely rose to confront the threat. As Twin Moons aligned, General Geshu Lin vowed to vanquish evil, raising his blade against the blood-red crescent that foretold destruction. His sword blazed with black flames, laying waste to all who dared stand in his way. Victory seemed certain. Until the retroact rain began to fall. Raindrops fell upwards, as in the past. Monsters raged, loyal souls fell to blood-soaked sands, infernal carnage. Issuing his last command, Geshu Lin demanded all soldiers stand firm, no matter what happened. Sacrificing his body to the black flames for power, Geshu Lin charged at the Overthrax with all his might, and he was never seen again. After the fall of their leader, the remaining soldiers despaired, until the deafening roar of Huanglong struck like lightning. A lone youth bravely stood up to lead a hard-won retreat. After the battle, that young man who tamed the wind ascended to fame, becoming the new general of the Midnight Rangers, selected by Sentinel Jur. On the other hand, General Geshu was blamed for the massive losses that occurred under his command, earning him a notorious reputation in Huanglong. That battle struck us hard, but our sentinel rose from its long slumber to select a new magistrate who will guide us into the future. Despite the previous disaster, Jinzhou was off to a promising start under our sentinel and the new magistrate's guidance. The people held hope for a better tomorrow.
After listening to the story, we start out on the Blake Bloom's track. An acquaintance of Shisha points us to a flower-type resonator who's currently on a field trip in the mountains, so we follow the trail of flowers on our way to meet Verena. Until we get there, let me just say, the cinematic about Geshu Lin, Jian, the Threnodian of the past, and Jinshi and the Sentinel does not fit into the questline here, and as you can see, I wasn't even able to incorporate it in a seamless way into the narrative. But if we look at it as an exposition, a prologue to the second half of the Huanglong Act, it had everything. While the remainder of this episode will be spent going after the Black Shore's members and learning about the retroact rain, the next two main quest lines after that are first about the battle in the Northern Barrens involving Jian and the Threnodium, and second about our past, our connection to Jue and Jinshi's connection to the Sentinel. So while yes, the cinematic broke the flow here, it was still an important part of the main quest. But enough about that, we've arrived. Verena is one of the original 5 stars in the game, but she has little main quest appearance. In fact, I don't remember if outside of this encounter we ever meet her again in a golden colored quest at all. She goes on about flower types for a while after we ask about the Blake Bloom. This is to give her a special characteristic you can remember her by, as she has so little screen time, otherwise she'd be too bland. Then we figure out the perfect way to lure the Black Shore members out, create a fake Blake Bloom, then wear it on the streets. While Shisha and Verena are talking, we move aside as we notice there were scattered Blake Bloom petals on our way over here. We were being followed. So we leave the others behind and set a trap with our presence as the bait.
Looking for me?
Oh, here you are.
This quest is about meeting side characters. First Verena, later Alto and Encore, and now Camellia. She is a member of the Black Shores, although she is in the business more for her own enjoyment than for world peace.
Couldn't care less. If it's all going boom tomorrow, why not have fun while we can?
She took a special liking to us, but we basically learned nothing from this conversation.
All our desires for the ultimate pleasure.
She gets away, and we go back to the city as our companions have already returned. A last thing about her. In the first episode I mistook her for Frova, the other Fractsidus overseer besides Scar, even in my retrospective watch-through. This is how measly her role was in this quest. Narratively, she's also a bit of a misfit, as the Black Shores will be represented by Alto and Encore in the main quest, whom we are about to meet now.
Rover, there you are. We walked the streets, wearing the Blake bloom like you said. Talked to various people, but I didn't hear anything useful. Shizia did say she found someone suspicious. Look, it's him.
Our run-in with Alto does not start on good terms. Chisha suspects him of bad business, which isn't far from reality as he's an informant, so first she interrogates him.
Hey, I'm Patroller Chisha. Sir, business license, please.
During this, Encore shows up, with Verena. So I guess Verena did have another scene after the one on the mountain, but in this one the focus is on Alto and Encore, not on her. Encore is Alto's companion, being a Black Shores member. Their relationship dances on the border of family and guardianship, as Encore is still a child. And as a child, she isn't able to read the room, so she tells us that Alto sent her to watch me. And with that, Chisha decides to try and detain Alto. Without success, as Alto uses a smoke, or rather mist, his resonance ability, and flees. After a little chase, we finally catch up to him, but by this time, it's only us, so Alto can be more open. He lets us know he's a member of the Black Shores for real, but that's all we are going to get for free. As an information dealer, everything has a price to him, and it seems like if we want to further our knowledge of our identity and our connection to the Black Shores, we'll have to help him get to this Court of Savantai facility. We meet up with the rest of our team to tell them what happened before we set out for the other end of the Huanglong map. I do admit I missed the fact that Yang told us the resonance beacon near the destination will be unlocked for us, so instead I had to get there on foot, but I was fine with that. I mean, if I'm role-playing, I shouldn't really be teleporting anyway. So here comes a montage of my way to the ruins.
Leave it to me.
At first, I thought Alto will be just putting us through some unrelated grunt work, but as it turns out, this is not the fetch quest, rather a substantial part of the main quest. There are 3 rooms in the facility which we need to unlock one after the other, and in the rooms we are always met with holograms of the researchers from years past.
The Retroact Rain. The Retroact Rain conjures illusions of past events for those exposed to it. Before the Retroact Rain forms, it goes through 3 stages. In the first stage, it looks just like any regular rain, and what we're seeing now should be the second stage. Water droplets floating in midair, being absolutely still.
In listening to the researchers' discussion, we learn about the Retroact Rain and some events from an earlier era tied to it. Because these discussions are short and out of context, we might as well just listen to them. They also set up the weekly boss of this facility, which will be the last thing we fight today.
But we still can't get the desired outcome. Why? The artificial retroactive rain project has advanced to its second phase. We have various evidence that this ancient civilization was the Whining Aches' Maya at some point. We believed we could recreate that divine miracle with the artificial retroact rain. Have we been mistaken? We have no time left. The artificial controllable tacit field should be complete by now. We'll have to rely on our backup plan. That Fractsidus overseer has been really generous with his sponsorship. It would have taken us much longer to build this place without him. Though he loves to meddle with our experiments a bit too much. Well, he's our patron. Can't do anything about that. The committee kicked us out like trash. They'll never understand. As Professor Heist stated, we are embarking on a monumental endeavor with the power to redefine humanity's future. This time, we will make the divine miracle we saw happen again for all of humanity to behold. How's Subject A038 doing lately?
It has yet to assume a concrete form or exhibit vocalization behavior. In most cases, it remains motionless. However, we noticed some behavioral discrepancies from our initial expectations, and further observation and research would be necessary.
It's merely a replica after all. It's far from the true form of those gods.
It's getting closer. These will be my final words. If only I had more. I thought my enemies were misconceptions, waning passion, and my own ignorance. Only in the end did I realize time is my ultimate foe. I became blindsided by my fear of death and insatiable thirst for truth, eventually derailing our research. It was too late when I finally came back to my senses. We had already walked into that false gate. Now, I'm leaving my last realization behind. They are our past, but they are also our future. Had I realized it sooner, there might have been a chance to get things back on track. The future being hailing from our past. Please save us once again. Please keep pushing forward until you reach the real gate that can change the world.
I will not pretend I understand what the lady who pushed us into this world at the start of episode 1 has to do with Professor Heist, the elderly researcher we saw here, but I hope one day I will get far enough in the story that this scene will turn out revelatory. Otherwise, it's just too obscure and without a point. Now that we've unlocked the main room in the facility, it's time to face A038. While we do the fighting, I will summarize what Alto tells us about this place right after the battle. The researchers who worked in this facility were trying to recreate the retroact rain to relieve an event that left a lasting impression on them. We do not know what this miracle was, but it must have been something big since the retroact rain was involved. After the researchers failed, they switched to Plan B, which led to the monster before us being born. Plan B was to try and recreate a god with the usage of frequencies. Was that god the lady we saw in the hologram, or something more similar to the monster that became the outcome here? I do not know. It seems like an important detail that the Fractsidus overseer was involved in sponsoring the research. But that's it. The researchers gave their lives in their zeal willingly, so that this monster could devour their frequencies, and now we're here fighting it. As our reward for helping Alto recover the resonance beacon here, we get to ask him some questions.
What do you want to know about the Black Shores?
So let's see what he knows about Camellia.
Of course we do. Yeah, she can be kind of unhinged, but she's indeed one of ours. Just so you know, she only took up this mission because of you. Quite the charmer, aren't you? I know she could be a bit too straightforward in how she expresses herself, but don't worry. She won't do anything bad to you.
And if he has info on our connection to the Black Shores.
Insignificant consultant at the Black Shores, so I don't know that much about all its hidden secrets. But I believe the piece of intel I'm about to share with you will make this trip worth your effort. This is not the first time you've been reawakened. Last time, you woke up at the Black Shores.
I have mentioned that this part of the main quest is an outlier. It serves the purpose of introducing the Black Shores and giving some background on the Retroact Rain. But we will witness it in full effect in the next main mission anyway, so just for that it would not be necessary. One of Alto's last lines is the following.
Remember the Blake bloom I gave you earlier? It's more than just a symbol. It also holds the key to our headquarters. I'm sure it'll come in handy.
This is where we find the purpose of this quest. Once we deal with the Threnodian, we'll already have a next destination. With Jinzhou's Sentinel searching storyline, we actually have two.
Glad I got you on board, Rover.
This mission was just groundwork for that, as well as a way to introduce Verina, Camellia, Alto and Encore. Before we would leave, Alto wants to check the resonance beacon again. And this is where he discovers something. We rush to the surface and then are met with a long quest ahead alert. So what was it that made Alto exclaim in disbelief? We'll have to discover it another time.